Hello, everybody. A Sunday school teacher was describing that when Lot's wife looked back at Sodom and Gomorrah, she turned into a pillar of salt. When little Billy Bob interrupts and says, "That's nothing. My mum looked back once when she was driving and she turned into a lamppost." We're never going to find our future and our destiny if we're looking in our rear view mirrors. It's probably why God gives us two eyes in the front of our heads, although us women have obviously naturally got two in the back as well. And if you're taking notes this morning, the title of this word is Don't Look Back. Who's ready to read a big chunk of the Bible with me this morning? Who loves the Bible? I love the Bible. My favourite book in the Bible is Genesis. So I hate January because it's just a dull month where nothing happens. But actually, when you get to the daily audio Bible in a year, it starts in Genesis. And it's just got the most amazing stories, and we're going to read one this morning. This is Genesis 19, 1 to 26. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening. Lot was sitting at the city gate. He saw them and got up to welcome them, bowing before them and said, "Please, my friends, come to my house and stay the night. Wash up. You can rise early and be on your way refreshed." And they said, No, we'll sleep in the street. But he insisted and wouldn't take no for an answer, and they relented and went home with him. Lot fixed a hot meal for them, and they ate. Before they went to bed, men from all over the city of Sodom, young and old, descended on the house from all sides and boxed them in. They yelled to Lot, "Where are the men who are staying with you for the night? Bring them out so we can have our sport with them." Lot went out, barring the door behind him, and said, "Brothers, please, don't be vile. Look, I've got two daughters, they're virgins. Let me bring them out. You can take your pleasure with them, but don't touch these men. These men are my guests." They said, "Get lost. You drop in from nowhere and now you're going to tell us how to run our lives. We'll treat you worse than them." And they charged past Lot to break down the door. But the two men reached out and pulled Lot inside the door and locked it. Then they struck blind the men who were trying to break down the door, both leaders and followers, leaving them groping in the dark. The two men said to Lot, "Do you have any other family here? Sons, daughters, anybody in the city? Get them out of here now. We're going to destroy this place. The outcries of victims here to God are deafening, and we've been sent to blast this place into oblivion." Don't you just love the Message version of the Bible? Lot went out and warned the fiancés of his daughters, "Evacuate this place. God is about to destroy this city." But his daughters' would-be husbands treated it as a joke. At break of day, the angels pushed Lot to get going. "Hurry, get your wife and your two daughters out of here before it's too late and you're caught in the punishment of this city." Lot was dragging his feet, and the men grabbed Lot's arm and the arms of his wife and daughters. God was so merciful to them and dragged them to safety outside the city. When they had them outside, Lot was told, "Now run for your life and don't look back. Don't stop anywhere on the plain. Run for the hills or you'll be swept away." But Lot protested, "No, masters, you can't mean it. I know that you've taken a liking to me and have done me an immense favor in saving my life, but I can't run for the mountains. Who knows what terrible things might happen to me in the mountains and leave me for dead? But look over there. That town's close enough to get to. It's a small town, hardly anything in it. Let me escape there and save my life. It's a mere wide place in the road." "All right, Lot, if you insist, I'll let you have your way. And I won't stamp out the town you've spotted, but hurry up. Run for it. I can't do anything until you get there." That's why the town was called Zoar, which means small town. The sun was high in the sky when Lot arrived at Zoar. And then God rained brimstone and fire down on Sodom and Gomorrah, a river of lava from God out of the sky, and destroyed these cities and the entire plain and everyone who lived in the cities and everything that grew from the ground. Wow. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the story ends on this cliffhanger, verse 26. But Lot's wife turned back and turned into a pillar of salt. What a story. I mean, you could look at it and think, seriously, that has never happened. But if it's in the Bible, it must be truth. Now, Lot's wife isn't just mentioned in Genesis. She's also mentioned in the New Testament. Listen to these words from Jesus. This is when he's speaking to his disciples about coming time of great destruction in Luke. And he utters this. 3 words. Remember Lot's wife. Now, it's easy to miss these 3 little words, but Jesus never minced his words. He never wasted his words. So if he said it, you can rest assured that it's there for a very good reason. Second shortest verse in the Bible. Not only that, but she's also the only woman that Jesus ever tells us to remember. Even though there's about 170 women in the Bible, this is the only woman that he tells us to remember. He never tells us to remember Eve, first woman on the planet. He never tells us to remember his own mum, Mary, who birthed him as a virgin and whose pelvic floor is never going to be the same again. He doesn't mention Sarah, who pops out a kid at the age of 90. He doesn't mention Deborah, sorry Debs, first female judge in Israel. Doesn't mention Esther, who saved an entire race from genocide. So many women that he could have asked us to remember, but he didn't. So why would Jesus tell us to remember Lot's wife? Lot's wife, who only gets one cameo in the Old Testament and one in the New, with the shortest bio in history, doesn't even have her own name in print. We don't even know what she's called. She's just called Lot's wife. And I'm thinking, all my Christian life, I don't think I've ever pondered on this verse. I've never, ever stopped to think, I need to remember Lot's wife. So what exactly is it about her that we're supposed to be remembering? Well, I think there's a couple of things, and I'm going to unpick the story. This unnamed woman was given one instruction: don't look back. I think there's something within us all that calls us to look back. We're coming to the end of another year. The newspapers and the magazines will start showing pictures from January through to December. We do it ourselves with our own Legends, what do we call it? Brochure, book. What do we call it, everyone? What do we call our Legends brochure that we give out? Thank you, Kathy, annual report. There you go. We have history books, yearbooks, photo albums, Facebook memories. God, I love those. And it causes us to reminisce, doesn't it, when we look back? It can make us a little bit nostalgic because there's some value in what once was. Today is a really, really special day for me because I am looking back today. Because on this day, 30 years ago today, try and do it without crying, I walked through those doors for the first time. Wow. 30 years ago today, at the age of 23, I know I'm going to look 21, having been horrifically backslidden for 7 years, I just walked through those doors and I was talking to the lovely ladies over there and I felt like I'd come home. I didn't know anybody. Well, I kind of did. I knew that one. We'd been at college together. But 30 years to go today. Now, I'm not looking back to yearn for the past, but I am looking back to learn from the past. I'm looking back today to see how far I've come. And I'm not thinking on all the fails that I've done. I'm not thinking on the mistakes that I've made along the way. And tell me, I've made plenty. But I'm thanking God that somehow he always manages to turn everything we do wrong into good. Thank you, Irene, for that affirmation. I'm looking back today to affirm how far I've come. I'm not looking back on the disappointments, and there's been plenty of them over the 3 decades. But no, it's way more exciting to look ahead to the promises of God that he's still going to fulfill in my life. And that is my encouragement to you guys this morning, that in your looking back, don't look at the rubbish. Meditate on the good stuff and bring that stuff forward with you. Because the thing with looking back is that you can get stuck in your pasts. We can get stuck in our past problems. We can become prisoners to our past, and that will prevent us from moving forward. Because here's the thing, we can't live in the past and still be fully alive. And when we look back and we get stuck there, we end up missing out on what's ahead. C.S. Lewis said, there are far greater things ahead than anything that we leave behind, which he probably got from the Bible, because Job says it as well. He tells us that our latter days will be greater than our former days. So let's not look back and say, oh, why? Let's look forward and say, why not? Come on. When I think about my past, there are 2 things I can see. I can see how far I've come, and I can see that I've got a past that actually I don't want to return to. In my formative years of life at school, I was bullied horrifically. It's not a season I would choose to look back on. And then in my teenage years, I walked away from God, and I'm not proud of the things that I did. That's not something I want to look back on either. And maybe for you, you've got similar stories. You know, you've got painful memories from childhood or even into adulthood. There's things that you definitely don't want to dwell on and look back on. Maybe some of you were rejected by somebody. Maybe some of you didn't have both parents growing up, or you just had some past trauma. I don't know. I don't know all your backgrounds. But I do know that sometimes it's hard to turn off the reruns that go through in our heads. But to be honest, I've never really been one for looking back. I'll often say as a Christian, I've got nothing to go back to. I don't want the old me. I don't like the version of the old me. I want the new me. Even as a toddler, my mum's favourite memory of me is a photograph of me literally like 10 metres ahead of her, just striding on, didn't care that she wasn't behind me, always pushing forwards. Let's not look back, but let's aim instead to live in the moment and crack on with the assignment that God's got for us. But Lot's wife turned back. Let's get back to the story. So God sends 2 angels. I mean, 1 angel probably would have been enough. Anyone ever seen an angel? Scary. Must have been some serious issues going on in Sodom and Gomorrah for God to send 2 angels. But here she is, she's being led out by these 2. Let's face it, they're there to not only rescue her from death, but they're about to deliver her into an absolutely incredible future. But she makes the very poor decision to do the absolute opposite of what's being asking of her. And maybe you're in a place today where someone in authority is asking something of you, asking you to do something, and you're being disobedient. And my challenge would be careful, because the Bible has a lot to say about submitting to our leaders, submitting to those that are in power over us, our government, our police force. We're called to submit. We're called to submit to our teachers, to our bosses. Wives are called to submit to their husbands. We're called to submit to our pastors. And I am the pastor, but don't think I get away with it. I have to submit to John Pettifer. And if you know who he is, you'll know that's not easy. But let me tell you what was going on in Lot's wife's head. And this is my second observation. You see, when the angels told her not to look back, the word tells us that she looked back foolishly and longingly. Like, this wasn't just I'm running along and, oh, there's some fire coming down. This was one of these complete longing moments. She lingered and she longed. The angels were trying to direct her away from her old way of life and everything that it represented. But she just couldn't let go. And it showed God that she had no desire to leave the place that he was trying to take her out of. Because you can take Lot's wife out of Sodom and Gomorrah, but you can't get Sodom and Gomorrah out of Lot's wife. The problem with her was that she'd got her eyes on all the wrong things. She was looking back at a lost life, a lost lifestyle, and even a lost city. It was all obliterated. And we're not told what she was reluctant to leave behind. Maybe that longing, that look, was wrapped up in some friendships that she'd got in the city. Maybe she didn't want to leave her extended family behind. I don't know. Maybe she just decorated a house. Maybe she'd forgotten a leather jacket or a piece of jewelry. Maybe she'd accumulated a load of possessions and just didn't want to leave it behind, fearful of losing what she'd got. Maybe she held a place of prominence in the city. She was Lot's wife. Like, Lot was an important guy. He was the nephew of Abraham, who was totally loaded and utterly loved by God. So she would have known Abraham really well. This was a man who was called the friend of God. This is her husband's uncle. So she would have seen firsthand Abraham's dedication to God, his altar, his worship, and the power of God on his life. So she was privileged to be in association with one of the greatest godly men who ever walked our planet. And we don't know because the Bible doesn't divulge the information, but what we do know is that whatever her longings were, it got her stuck. And she's still stuck. Stuck as a statue, a salt statue. Stuck between the place she was leaving and the place where she was meant to be going. And I don't know where your gaze is fixed this morning, but whatever you're longing for will determine the path that your feet take. Many of you will know the story of the prodigal son found in the Bible. He was the one who wanted his father's inheritance before his dad even died. And then he went away and squandered it. His gaze was on the world, and his feet followed. This is why so many people don't get saved today, because their eyes are on the wrong thing. It's why some of us don't live our lives right today, because our gaze is fixed on the wrong things. And I'm here to tell you it's a dangerous way to live, because God's plan for our lives is perfect, and if we follow it, it will leave us blessed. But if we choose to reject what God has to offer us, we'll find our lives just full of disappointment and disaster and trouble. So I wonder what path you're looking at this morning. What place do you want to live in? And let me tell you about that place. Let me tell you about Sodom and Gomorrah. It was wicked, man. It was vile. The Bible tells us that homosexuality was rampant, that there was gang rape and mob violence. And we're told that the residents were turning their backs on the needs of strangers and even on their own families that were in need. In other words, there was no hospitality going on whatsoever. And that was a massive thing back in that day. The people were full of pride. They were just out for themselves. They were having a great time, partying hard from dawn till dusk. It was all about food and drink and comfort and abundance. And they were greedy. But they were ignoring the plights of their own brothers and sisters. They were ignoring the needs of the marginalized. There was like this gross injustice going on, and God hates injustice. Lot's wife was rich. She had plenty of food. She had a great quality of life. But she was living for her own enjoyment. And the angels wanted to get her away from that way of living because she was stuck in her pride. She was stuck in this rich, opulent lifestyle. She couldn't lay it down. Her longing for what she was leaving behind was greater than God's provision, God's purpose, and God's promise. And so she lingered. She lingered. And she got stuck in a place she was only ever meant to be passing through. Because you see, church, some things will kill you if you turn back to them. And maybe today some of us are lingering and longing for some stuff that God is actually asking us to leave behind. I said it last week and I'll say it again. Jesus is coming back. Let's live in that reality. Don't live in the past. And don't be like her, stuck in pride or abundance or comfort. Be generous. Commit your lives to one another. Look after the poor. Look after the needy. Take in the marginalized. Live a pure, righteous life. Because the way we live our lives down here matters to God. Justice matters to God. Caring for the needs of others matters to God. So maybe God's asking you to leave something behind. I don't know. Ali and I find ourselves in a season where God is asking us to lay a lot of things down. It's hard. A little bit of pride wrapped up in that. For me. It's hard. But do I want God's best for my life? Do I want to obey God? Heck yeah. Because I've tried it the other way and it didn't work. It's painful when you disobey God. So let's not be stuck in a place where God doesn't want us, or a season maybe that we shouldn't be in anymore. We should only ever be passing through. So let's not get stuck in our pasts. Proverbs 14:12 tells us this: "There's a way that looks good to a man, but in the end, it leads to death." Don't look back. Don't linger longingly for something God needs you to lay down. Deal with it. Deal with it today. I get it. It's easy to long for what was instead of adjusting to something new that we can't actually see the outcome of. But isn't that our challenge in all God calls us to? We're called to a life of faith. And the Bible says that faith is the evidence of things that you can't see. So we have to step out not knowing. But it's often in that stepping out that God takes a step forward to us and great things can happen. Or do we just choose to stay in our comfort, choose to stay in our feelings, choose to try and preserve our past, choose to keep ourselves in nostalgia, choose to long for someone or something, choose to linger where we shouldn't be anymore, choose to not let go of a relationship we know isn't doing us or anyone else any good, stuck in fear, guilt, shame, bitterness, unforgiveness, addictions, culture, grief, and bad decisions where actually we don't really want to be there, but we've just got so used to it. We just think that's it. Don't look back. Don't be like Lot's wife, who in turning witnessed the absolute annihilation and destruction of her home, her people, and her land by this raining sulfurous fire, and then ends up dying as well. Don't look back. Our salvation lies in the present, not in the past. The Apostle Paul said in Hebrews 10:39, "We are certainly not those who are held back by fear and perish. We are among those who have faith and experience true life." We can learn a lesson from Lot's wife, but let's not learn it the hard way. Let's not look back. Let's look to Jesus. In the words of Hebrews 12, let's let go of the sin we so easily fall into and strip off every weight that slows us down so that we can run life's marathon race with passion and determination and endurance. Josh, you can come up, thanks. So where's your heart at this morning, I wonder? Because here's the real reasons that Jesus warns us to remember Lot's wife. It was to warn us how to react to the conditions in our world, to warn us to be ready for Jesus to make his return, because it's going to happen. And the Bible tells us it's going to happen when nobody's watching. It's to warn us to not focus on the things of this world, because the stuff of this life will perish. You can't take anything to the grave with you. Focus on God. Remember where your treasure is, because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And it's a warning, it's a reminder to not turn our backs on our faith in these last days, because it's going to be hard, guys. It's already hard to be a Christian today. Nobody likes us. We're called hypocrites. Let me not encourage you. It's going to get harder. But we are not those who turn back. We are those that press on and experience a full life. And it's an encouragement to follow Jesus no matter what is happening in this world. And I don't know if you watch the news, but there's not a lot of good stuff happening in the world right now. It's a scary place to live. Lot's wife was valuing her comfort items. She was indulging in sin. She was devaluing the things of God. She was disobedient. And she was looking back longingly at what once was. Because she was looking back, she couldn't see what was right in front of her, which was her deliberate sin, which was going to kill her. Let's not be the kind of Christians who rock up to church and say all the right things and then spend the rest of our week not following the ways of Jesus. The Bible tells us we'll know when people are really following Jesus, and we'll know them by the fruit in their lives, the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. If we truly profess to love Jesus, the world won't cause us to stumble or turn. And you can sit here today and say, yeah, well, you know what, Kate, I really do love Jesus. But if you're messing about with sin and treating it too lightly, I'm telling you right now, that's the devil's playground. That's exactly where he wants you. Sin is a deceiver. It's dangerous. It will kill us. It's not going to kill us physically. I'm not going to be smited with salt. I'm not going to be a salt pot. But it will kill our souls. Don't let anything get a toehold in your life. Root it out. Let's get radical about the sin that we've got and leave it behind. Maybe there's some relationships, some friendships, some attractions, some addictions, some distractions, some habits that we need to let go of. Because in our letting go, God will show us what he's got in store for us. Let's not be looking back at past failures, mistakes, disappointments, hurts and offences. Stop looking back at the things that keep you stuck. Stop rehearsing past conversations and going over old ground. Today, make a choice to step into the fullness of your God-given destiny and purpose. Lot's wife's judgment was fast. It was serious and it was settled. Like there was no coming back from being turned into a pillar of salt. And we could walk around in our sin for years, but one day, guys, judgment will come for us. And like I said, it doesn't come in the form of us being salt statues. It'll come when we die and we stand before God and he says, why should I let you into my heaven? And being a good person ain't going to cut it. Doing good deeds won't cut it with God. We'll be known by our fruit. We get in because we love Jesus. We've accepted him. We're living for him. And as we live for him, that fruit of the Spirit will automatically just ooze from us. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. We need to remember Lot's wife this morning, not so that we can revive this ages-old painful story, but so that we can be reminded that this life we are living is fleeting. 30 years ago today, I walked into this building. Could have been yesterday. 3 decades have gone just like that, guys. I met my husband here. invited back to be the pastors here, just as the prophetic word said. But time goes so fast and our lives are so fleeting. We're just passing through. The best thing we can do as we're passing through is to determine that we're going to believe in Jesus, that we're going to follow Jesus, that we're going to press on into all that he's got for us, and that we're going to be fully expectant for great things. And you can't do that when you're looking back. I'm going to close with this. Did you know that the definition of past is this? It's gone. It no longer exists. And if the past no longer exists, then why on earth would we be held prisoners by it? Let's allow God to architect our futures from this point on. Let's live our lives in full expectation that our latter days are going to be better than our former ones, and that salvation and healings and blessings and miracles are ahead of us and not behind us. Let's be like Moses, who the book of Hebrews tells us was looking ahead to a great reward. Let's not look back. Let's fix our eyes on Jesus. We're going to sing an older song. It's not that old. Old chorus. And these are the words. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back.